You're listening to the Quantum Space Podcast, Innovating Trust. This is Episode 2, Europe's Quantum Security, using excerpts from Quantum Computing and Digital Sovereignty, Building Secure and Independent IT Infrastructures by the Quantum Space. This podcast is an analysis of the threat posed by quantum computing to digital security and European digital sovereignty, and Europe's strategic response.
Okay, let's get into it. Quantum computing. It's one of those things that's felt like science fiction for ages, right? Huge potential. But now it feels like it's actually, knocking on the door.
It really is. It's moving from theory into something much more tangible.
Yeah.
And that shift brings amazing possibilities, sure, but also a pretty serious potential threat to, well, our entire digital security setup.
Yeah, the foundations of it, the encryption we rely on for everything, banking, communications, sensitive data, all of it. These future machines might just break it.
That's the core concern. The standard cryptographic methods we use, the ones that create digital trust, they could become vulnerable.
And when that happens, it hits this idea of digital sovereignty square on. I mean, if your digital locks can be picked, or if you need someone else's tech for the new locks, how sovereign are you, really?
It's a massive question for nations, for companies. We're looking at an article by Steve Atkins today that lays this out really well. So our mission here is to unpack that quantum threat, connect the dots to digital sovereignty, and then explore the concrete steps being taken, especially what Europe is doing strategy-wise.
Right, so this isn't just future gazing. It's about understanding decisions being made now that affect infrastructure and security down the line.
No.
What does this mean for you, listening in, and the data you need to protect? Let's dig in. So maybe start with the basics. How does a quantum computer actually, threaten our current security systems? What's the mechanism?
Well, it really boils down to specific quantum algorithms. There are two main ones everyone's focused on. First, there's Shor's algorithm.
Okay.
Shor's is incredibly good at factoring large numbers, which is the mathematical problem underpinning things like RSA and ECC elliptic curve cryptography.
The stuff that secures websites, HTTPS, digital signatures, that kind of thing.
Exactly. The public key cryptography is everywhere. If you have a quantum computer big enough and stable enough to run Shor's algorithm effectively, those systems become, well, breakable, comparatively easy to crack.
Okay, that's significant. What's the second algorithm?
The second one is Grover's algorithm. Now, this one works differently. It doesn't completely break symmetric encryption, think AES, the kind used for encrypting files or data at rest.
Right.
But Grover's can dramatically speed up the process of finding the right key, like a brute force attack, but much faster. So to keep the same security level against a Grover attack, you'd need significantly longer AES keys.
So it weakens it, requires us to adapt significantly.
Got
Got it. But this all depends on having these powerful quantum computers, right? When are we actually talking about seeing these cryptographically relevant machines, the CRQCs?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? CRQC, the point where they can actually break today's crypto. Estimates do vary quite a bit. The source we're looking at points towards the mid-2030s as a kind of common time frame people mention.
But it could be sooner.
Some analysts definitely think so. Quantum research is accelerating, breakthroughs happen. It's hard to pin down an exact date, which leads to this other really concerning idea.
The harvest now, decrypt later thing, HNDL.
Exactly, HNDL. This is critical to understand. Adversaries think nation-states or very sophisticated groups, they don't actually need a working CRQC today to be a threat.
How does that work?
They can simply siphon off and store huge amounts of encrypted data right now, stuff that's protected by current RSA or ECC encryption. They just hoard it.
And wait.
And wait. They wait until they do have a CRQC, maybe in 10, 15 years, and then they can go back and decrypt all that stored data from the past.
Wow. So anything with long-term sensitivity, state secrets, intellectual property, medical histories, financial data, it's potentially compromised now, even if it can't be read today.
Precisely. That's the urgency.
Yeah.
Data that needs to stay confidential for decades is already at risk because of this harvest now, decrypt later threat. It makes sectors like finance, healthcare, defense, government immediately vulnerable in the long term.
Okay, so that vulnerability, that potential loss of confidentiality for years of data, that ties directly into digital sovereignty, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. Digital sovereignty, as the article puts it, is fundamentally about maintaining control over your data, your technology, your digital infrastructure.
And if quantum computing means you could lose control over your data's security,
Then your sovereignty over that data is directly undermined. And there's another angle, too. What if the solutions, the PQC algorithms, the quantum-safe hardware, what if they mainly come from outside your own borders?
then you become dependent on foreign technology for your fundamental security. You're ceding control again.
Right. And the article points this out specifically for Europe. There's already a reliance on foreign tech in critical areas like semiconductors, like cloud services. You look at the global investment scene, China pouring billions, the U.S. with huge private sector innovation.
Europe needs its own capabilities to avoid just becoming a consumer of other people's security tech.
Exactly. Building independent quantum-resilient infrastructure isn't just a technical upgrade. It's a strategic necessity for maintaining digital autonomy in the future. Without it, you risk giving up a lot of control.
Okay, so the threat's clear. The link to sovereignty is undeniable. Let's shift to solutions. What can actually be done? The article lays out practical strategies, right?
Yes, several key ones. The absolute cornerstone is transitioning to what's called post-quantum cryptography, PQC.
Okay, PQC. What's the basic idea there? Is it using quantum computers for encryption?
No, that's a common misconception.
Yeah.
PQC algorithms are still classical algorithms. They run on the computers we have today. The key difference is their mathematical basis.
Ah, okay.
Instead of relying on problems like factoring large numbers, which Shor's algorithm solves easily, PQC uses different types of math problems, things based on lattices, codes, hash functions, that we believe are hard for both classical and quantum computers to crack.
So new math problems for new locks.
Yeah.
And are there standards for this yet?
Yes, and that's a huge step forward. The U.S. National Institute of Standards and Technology, NIST, finalized its first set of PQC standards in August 2024. There are three key ones. ML-Chem for key exchange.
Like setting up a secure connection.
Right. Then ML-DSA for digital signatures, and SLH-DSA, which is another type of signature algorithm. These NIST standards are quickly becoming the global benchmark.
So if you're an organization, how do you actually start implementing these? What are the steps?
Well, first, you need to figure out where you're vulnerable. That means doing a cryptographic inventory, finding all the places your systems use RSA, ECC, or other soon-to-be insecure algorithms. NIST has guidance on this. Tools exist.
Okay, map out the problem areas. Then what?
Then plan the migration. It's usually not a flip-the-switch thing. The article mentions hybrid cryptography, a common transition strategy, strongly recommended by Germany's BSI, for example.
Hybrid, meaning you run the old and the new PQC algorithms side by side for a while.
Exactly. You use both. The PQC provides the quantum resistance, while the old algorithm maintains compatibility with systems that haven't been upgraded yet. It's a bridge. But there's a catch performance.
Ah, these new algorithms are heavier.
Often, yes. They can require more computing power, generate larger keys or signatures. That could be a challenge, especially for small, low-power devices like in the Internet of Things. Sometimes you need hardware acceleration to make it work efficiently.
So performance is one challenge. What else makes PQC adoption difficult?
Integration is a big one. Trying to weave these new algorithms into complex, sometimes very old legacy IT systems. That's a major piece of work. It takes time, resources, careful planning. And also, the math behind some PQC, like lattices, is relatively newer in widespread cryptographic use, so there's ongoing research to double-check for any unexpected weaknesses. Vigilance is key.
Okay, so PQC is step one. Replace the vulnerable algorithms. What's strategy number two?
Number two is embedding crypto agility. It sounds a bit buzzwordy, but it's really important.
Crypto agility, meaning flexibility.
Basically, yes. It's designing your systems so that you can easily update, switch out, or reconfigure the cryptographic algorithms being used without having to re-engineer everything from scratch.
And why is that so vital now?
Because the landscape is still evolving. New standards might emerge, better PQC algorithms could be discovered, maybe even a flaw is found in one of the current ones down the road. Crypto agility means you're not locked in. You can adapt to changes, threats, improvements much more easily.
Makes sense. Are there examples of this being done?
Yeah, the article mentions a German project, PQC4MD, that's putting updatable secure elements in medical devices. Think about hardware like IBM's Z16 mainframe, designed with flexible crypto layers, or using sophisticated key management systems like Crypto4A's QXHSM. These are built with agility in mind.
But trying to add this to older systems must be tough.
Extremely tough. Retrofitting crypto agility into systems that weren't designed for it is often the biggest hurdle. It really underscores why this needs to be a design principle for new systems and part of any long-term IT modernization plan.
Okay, so PQC algorithms plus crypto agility to manage them. What's the third element?
The third piece is developing quantum-safe hardware. Hardware is crucial for a couple of reasons.
Right.
First, for securely storing cryptographic keys. Second, for performance, helping to accelerate those more demanding PQC calculations, especially, like we said, on smaller devices.
And is Europe active in this hardware space?
Yes, the article mentions European chip makers like Infineon working on optimizing their processors specifically for PQC. And there's a focus on developing specialized secure hardware components, things like PQC-ready hardware security modules, or HSMs, and trusted platform modules, TPMs.
And there's policy backing this up. I think you mentioned the EU Chips Act earlier.
Exactly. The EU Chips Act, with its massive $43 billion budget, is directly aimed at boosting domestic semiconductor production. It's a strategic move to build that foundational hardware capability within Europe, reduce dependency, and, bolster digital sovereignty right down to the silicon level.
But it's a big hill to climb for Europe in chip manufacturing, right?
Oh, absolutely. The source points out Europe's global market share in semiconductors was hovering around 10% in 2023. Building advanced chip factories, the foundries, takes enormous investment in years. Plus, you need the specialized workforce. It's definitely a long-term strategic play.
All right. Algorithms, agility, hardware. That leaves the software running on top of it all. Strategy 4.
Strategy 4 is upgrading enterprise software. All those applications, the operating systems, the databases, the cloud services, they all need to be updated to actually use the new PQC algorithms and to support that crypto agility we talked about.
Are the big software vendors on board with this?
Yes. Major players like SAP and IBM are mentioned as actively embedding quantum-safe protocols into their core products, their cloud platforms, their ERP systems. And importantly, there's work in the open source world too, like the Open Quantum Safe project, which provides libraries and tools to help developers integrate PQC into their own applications.
So for an organization managing its own software, what's the approach?
It involves updating the cryptographic libraries they use, really prioritizing the systems handling the most sensitive, long-lived data, think finance patient records again. And often, it's about phased migrations, probably using that hybrid crypto approach during the transition. The World Economic Forum, for instance, suggests this for the financial sector.
What are the sticking points here?
Legacy software is always a big one. Refactoring old code bases to make them quantum safe and crypto agile can be a huge undertaking. And then there's interoperability, making sure systems from different vendors, possibly using slightly different PQC implementations, can still talk to each other securely. That requires careful standardization and testing.
Okay, that covers 4 strategies. The 5th one mentioned was quantum communication. How does that fit in? Is it different from PQC?
Yeah, it's quite different. PQC, remember, uses classical computers running quantum-resistant math problems. Quantum communication, specifically things like quantum key distribution, or QKD, uses the actual principles of quantum mechanics to securely distribute encryption keys.
Ah, so it uses quantum phenomena for key sharing, not for the encryption itself.
Generally, yes. QKD is about getting a shared secret key to 2 parties in a way that's guaranteed by physics to be secure against eavesdropping. You'd then typically use that key with a standard symmetric cipher, like AES. It's often seen as a complementary technology to PQC, especially for very high security links, rather than a wholesale replacement for all encryption.
And Europe's doing something significant here. EuroQCI.
That's right, the European Quantum Communication Infrastructure, EuroQCI, is a major project. They're deploying QKD networks across the EU using both fiber optic links on the ground and satellites for longer distances. The focus is primarily on securing government communications and critical infrastructure.
So the idea might be to use QKD to distribute keys, and then maybe PQC for signing or encrypting data. Layers of security.
Exactly. That's often the concept, using multiple different quantum-safe approaches for defense in depth. So piloting QKD, integrating it where it makes sense with PQC systems, and working on standards through groups like ETSI, that's the direction.
Are there limitations to QKD? Why not use it everywhere?
Well, it needs dedicated hardware, special photon detectors, and emitters at both ends. Fiber-based QKD also has distance limits, maybe 100 kilometers or so, before the signal degrades too much, unless you have quantum repeaters, which are still mostly in the research phase. Satellite QKD overcomes distance but needs clear line of sight and ground stations. So it's powerful, but complex and not yet practical for every scenario.
Got it. So those are the 5 main technical pillars. What about the bigger picture, Europe's overall strategy to kind of orchestrate all this and boost its digital sovereignty?
Yeah, beyond individual company actions, there's a cohesive European strategy emerging. The article highlights several components, starting strongly with policy and regulation.
Okay, what are the key policies?
Well, there's a very direct one from the EU Commission in April 2024 recommendation, EU 2024-1101. It explicitly calls on member states to develop plans for migrating public administration and critical infrastructure to PQC, setting a target of implementing crypto agility and mitigating that HNDL risk, aiming for significant PQC adoption by 2030.
So, a clear deadline and push from the top. Does this link to other EU rules?
Yes, it builds on things like the NIS2 directive, which already mandates higher cybersecurity standards, including quantum resilience for critical sectors. And it aligns with the broader European cybersecurity strategy, which flagged quantum as a priority back in 2020 and supports initiatives like CRQCs and the big research program, the Quantum Technologies flagship. Plus, you have national bodies like Germany's BSI and the UK's NCSC providing concrete guidance.
Policy sets the goals. But you need money to make it happen. What about investment?
Huge focus there, too. Europe's got major programs underway. The Quantum Technologies flagship is a big one, a $1 billion 10-year initiative launched in 2018, really driving research and building the quantum ecosystem.
Wow, €1 billion.
And then there's the Euro-HPC joint undertaking, the high-performance computing effort. They're investing $100 million specifically to deploy 6 quantum computers across Europe by 2025. With a focus on using European-developed technology.
And the CHIPS Act feeds into this too, right, for the hardware side?
Absolutely critically. That $43 billion in the CHIPS Act is aimed squarely at doubling Europe's semiconductor market share by 2030. That's fundamental for creating the domestic hardware needed for PQC, for QKD, for everything, reducing that external dependency.
But the article does mention Europe still lags behind the US and China in overall quantum funding levels.
It does. It suggests that while public funding initiatives are strong, catching up fully might require more cross-border collaboration within Europe, perhaps new funding mechanisms, and really stimulating more private sector investment to match the scale seen elsewhere.
Okay, policy investment. What about making sure all these different efforts actually work together? Standardization.
Essential. And Europe is being quite pragmatic here, largely aligning with those NIST PQC standards, MLChem, MLDSA, SLHDSA. That ensures global compatibility, which is crucial.
Makes sense.
Then you have European bodies like ETSI developing specific technical standards for implementing PQC and QKD. The ITU works on international harmonization. And national agencies like BSI and NCSC provide that practical how-to guidance. International cooperation is also part of it, like the EU-Korea digital partnership mentioned.
Is this translating into action in specific critical areas?
Yes, the source gives good examples. In finance, the European Central Bank, national banks, they're moving on PQC adoption, guided by things like the World Economic Forum's roadmap. In healthcare, you have projects like PQC4MB focusing on medical device security. For energy grids, defense communications, EuroQCI is running pilots. They're learning from initiatives elsewhere, too, like CISA's work in the U.S.
One last piece of the strategy, people. You need experts to do all this.
Absolutely vital and a real challenge. The article cites a massive global cybersecurity skills gap. Something like 3.4 million professionals needed worldwide in 2024.
Wow.
So initiatives like the WEF's Skills Gap program, the Quantum Technologies flagship working with universities to develop curricula, industry partnerships with companies like SAP and IBM offering specialized training, these are all crucial for building the workforce needed for this quantum transition.
Okay, so summing up the challenges then, what are the main obstacles Europe, and really anyone undertaking this, is facing?
Well, we've touched on them. There's the performance hit from PQC sometimes, meeting optimization or hardware. There's the massive complexity and cost of upgrading legacy systems, intense global competition, especially from the US and China with their huge investments.
Yeah.
Potentially some fragmentation within Europe itself, different countries maybe having slightly different priorities or timelines. And that persistent shortage of skilled people, cybersecurity experts who also understand quantum threats and PQC.
And looking forward, what's next on the horizon based on the article?
Continued R&D is key, exploring potentially even better PQC algorithms, maybe diversifying the mathematical approaches. Definitely scaling up QKD networks, that means work on quantum repeaters for fiber, leveraging satellites more effectively. Ongoing efforts to harmonize standards globally are critical for interoperability. And fostering those public-private partnerships seems essential to pool resources and align strategies effectively.
Okay, so bringing this all back home, for you listening to this, maybe working in tech or policy or just concerned about digital security, what are the actionable takeaways from this source?
First off, really assess your cryptographic exposure, especially for data that needs long-term protection. Do you know where your organization uses RSA or ECC? Tools like the NIST NCOE guide can help organizations figure that out.
If you're involved in planning, start thinking long-term. This PQC migration is, a 5, maybe 10-year journey. Prioritize the most critical systems first and consider that hybrid approach as a way to start.
Definitely ask vendors about crypto agility. When you're buying new software or hardware, is it designed to allow for future crypto updates? That should be a standard question now.
Understand the hardware implications. Are the devices you're deploying or the chips you're using being built with PQC readiness in mind? Particularly important for IoT and embedded systems.
For really high security needs, maybe look into QKD pilots or developments. See if that complementary layer makes sense for your specific use case.
Try to engage in collaborative efforts where you can. Industry forums, working groups, standardization bodies, sharing knowledge and best practices is going to be crucial.
And finally, skills. Recognize this is a growing area of expertise. Look for ways to upskill yourself or your teams in quantum threats and quantum-safe solutions. The demand for these skills is only going to increase.
Okay, so that wraps our deep dive for today. It's clear the quantum threat isn't some distant sci-fi concept anymore. It's influencing decisions now. That harvest now, decrypt later risk makes long-term data vulnerable today.
Right. And building secure, sovereign digital systems for this new era is a massive undertaking. It needs the technical strategies we discussed, PQC, agility, hardware, software, QKD, but also that coordinated policy and investment, especially for regions like Europe, aiming for autonomy.
Europe's roadmap shows they're taking it very seriously.
Yeah.
Policy drivers, funding, standardization efforts, securing critical sectors. But the challenges are real. Implementation complexity, global competition, the skills gap. It's a work in progress.
And it's interesting, the author of the article we dove into, Steve Atkins, is apparently quite involved in ongoing discussions, moderating roundtables on this. It really highlights that this is a dynamic, evolving field right now.
Definitely. So maybe a final thought for everyone listening, something to chew on. As we make this huge shift towards quantum-safe security, how do we strike that balance? The balance between nations wanting digital autonomy, wanting control, and the reality that technology development is increasingly global and collaborative. How will that tension shape our digital future?
That was episode 2, Europe's Quantum Security, in our ongoing series, the Quantum Space Podcast, Innovating Trust. If you're looking for further information on this topic, please visit us at www.thequantumspace.org. Until then, thank you and goodbye.